Hey, folks, welcome to InTheMoneyStocks.com's intraday analysis video, brought to you by the creators of proprietary price, pattern, and time methodology. Learn the PPT strategies and profit for life. My name is Gareth Soloway, Chief Market Strategist here at InTheMoneyStocks.com. All right, into the action we go today on this Wednesday, September 3rd, 2014. Markets are basically mixed again, with a little bit of a difference. Yesterday, the NASDAQ was leading to the upside, following Apple up. Today, the NASDAQ is lagging as Apple collapsed. All right, this is really pretty interesting to see. If you look at the Apple intraday chart, look at that fall today. It's not very often you see Apple down literally 3 to 4+% on the day. When we were at the lows of the day, Apple was down over 4%. And remember, this is the largest market cap company out there. So to see that type of fall of 4+% is a big cut in market cap. We're literally talking about 10, 15, 20, 30 billion dollars cut off the market cap just alone in the fall from the highs to the lows. All right, now what went on here? Well, basically, Samsung unveiled some new gadgets, including a phone and a virtual reality 3D headset and so forth. And it really seems like that took a lot of steam out of Apple's upcoming conference, which is scheduled for next Tuesday. The question is, did Samsung basically jump the gun and release what Apple could release kind of already? In which case, there's already going to be a competitor out there for what Apple's going to release. And that's what we're going to find out. But that's what the media and the investors believe anyways, that there's some sort of connection there, and that's why Samsung did it ahead of time. The other side of the coin is obviously the iCloud. So based on what happened to these celebrities who had pictures hacked and released to the public and so forth, you're seeing a kind of a dull negative there based on that it looks like these images were in the iCloud and these hackers got into the iCloud, which basically is going to put a lot of people on edge about potentially storing things on the iCloud. So in any case, that's what's going on here, and that's what caused Apple to drop. The markets this morning, if we go back to the SPY to summarize briefly, they gapped higher. Why? Well, basically because Russia and Ukraine supposedly had some sort of ceasefire in place. That ceasefire seems to still be holding, if it is at all even a real thing, and that initially gave the markets a nice pop. The one thing on a technical basis you can see here is that you gapped up into a key trend line here. And if I zoom out, you can see if you connect through these highs right here, and then if we go back even further, right? So I have to go back, this trend line goes back, and this is the line that goes all the way back to April, which I've talked about. If you watch these videos for months, if you've been a member, you know this trend line. But in any case, it goes all the way, and I just keep going back and back, guys. And you can see it basically starts out from this high in May of this year and goes to this pivot high starting in April. So if you literally take the high from April and the high to May, that was the high pivot of the day. And let me zoom forward, zoom, all the way to the high here. You can see we hit it here, pulled back, hit it here, pulled back, again hit it here, and pulled back again. So that's very interesting to see how powerful that trend line is on the charts right now. Now, a couple other things to note here. Number one, we obviously saw the rollover, and you might say, well, why did the markets roll over? To be honest, not only was it a technical level, but Apple really dragged the markets down. All right, when Apple drops from literally, let's go to the Apple chart again. I mean, when you see a drop from 100 point, actually, that's the Qs. Let me bring up. You can see the drop on the Qs, though. But when Apple drops from 103 down to 98 and change, I mean, that's a huge fall on such a big component of the NASDAQ 100. Remember, the NASDAQ 100 is made up of 100 stocks. It's based off of market cap size. So Apple, obviously being the biggest company out there, has a huge weighting. So when that thing starts to collapse, people start seeing that, they sell everything else, and that's why you saw the SPY drop, the Qs chart drop. And again, if you look at the Qs, you can see the gap up, and look at that collapse on the Qs. So really pretty amazing stuff going on here. Now, the markets have recovered, at least in the short term. So if we go back to the SPY, you can see the recovery in the short term. We're basically back to the green side on the S&P or the SPY here. The Dow is still up about 39 points, but the NASDAQ is still under pressure because of Apple. And unless Apple were to recover tremendously, you're going to see Apple continue to drag down the NASDAQ for the rest of the day. All right, so that's what we have going on there. You can see the markets. See how the markets have been trying to get above this blue trend line in this 20 MA, and they're not able to? See how they've pierced it so many times here, and now they're starting. So this is basically a path of least resistance where after trying multiple times to get through a level, they just can't. So the path of least resistance obviously is the opposite way, and the markets are going to trade back down here a little bit. Now, the volume is getting minuscule, and this is interesting because why is the volume getting so light here in the afternoon on a Wednesday? And most people wouldn't know this, but the answer is very simple. Tomorrow you have the ECB announcing interest rate policy for Europe, and also Friday the non-farm payrolls. So everyone's now just waiting for Thursday and Friday, which is why the markets could pull back a little bit, but most likely won't sell off significantly. And I want people to be aware of that, is that sure, you could pull back a little bit here, but most likely will float sideways around this area, and that'll be where this market ends up in the end of the day type period. Okay, we could even float a little bit higher. I wouldn't be surprised. And it's basically, again, the lack of volume. You get a couple buyers, a couple people who want the market to go up, and they can do it very easily. All right. Again, we talked about Apple out there. There are some other stocks that are having good days today. Baidu was up a lot, still up decently. Amazon is on the opposite side, down a little bit today. So you have a mixed bag out there. If you look at the Dow components like Hewlett-Packard, IBM, and those stocks, they're mostly up today. Even Chevron and Exxon are bouncing back after tremendously disappointing days yesterday. Those stocks got hammered yesterday quite a bit. So for the most part, again, markets, Dow and S&P up, NASDAQ down, technology's under some pressure. One stock I'm watching closely, guys, is Netflix. The reason I'm watching Netflix is you might have a daily topping tail in place here. Not only that, but there's a great trend line here. Look at this. Look at that trend line. Take the high, connect to the high, hit this high, pulled back, and then pierce today. And look, you have a higher high here with a potential topping tail. So I'm going to watch that into the end of the day. That could be a significant signal on the chart there. Okay, so that's what we have going on there, guys. On that, Twitter today. Twitter initially gapped higher. I thought this was really interesting because it's a huge engulfing candle to the downside. This is most likely a top on Twitter, even if it bounces back in the coming days a little bit. Most likely, again, you have a topping tail, an engulfing reversal candle there. And again, when you have such a big run on Twitter, I mean, literally the stock was 25 bucks down here, goes all the way to $50+, and then look at that, gaps up today and just reverses. That's a big time reversal. Facebook kind of in the same position, had made a new all-time high this morning, but sold off. Hasn't done an engulfing candle yet, but something to watch. The airline stocks, after disappointing results from DAL, Delta Airlines, taking a beating here, and this is basically all these airline stocks are under quite a bit of pressure today. AAL down. Even LUV, which has been one of the strongest, down about 38 cents or 1.15% today. All right. I think that's about it for now, guys. Again, look for light volume in the afternoon. Markets to float sideways-ish, maybe even float up a little bit after a short-term pullback here on the intraday spiders chart. If we flip back to the spiders chart, again, you can see that the markets continue to see some selling. Like if you look at yesterday, sold kind of midday, early morning, or late morning, and then bounced back. Sold here and now are bouncing back. So if that's the light volume coming in. And here, even here, sold off, then bounced up, pulled back, and then went higher. And then here, gapped down and pushed up. So right now, you're seeing when you see selling early in the day, and this is the last thing I'll say, it's usually institutions distributing shares, selling, and the reason why is because that's the only time they can sell, when there's volume in the market. They can't dump when the volume's as light as it is now, really, because there's just, what can you do? There's no one to buy. You crush the markets, you crash the markets. So for the most part, it looks like that's what they're doing. They're selling early and then letting the markets float back up. That tells me ultimately that we'll be in a position to potentially see more downside probably next week or possibly as early as Friday with the jobs report. Take care, guys. Come join us here at InTheMoneyStocks.com. Get a free trial 7 days and get trade alerts, market reports, videos, you name it. It all comes with your membership, including massive amounts of profits. Take care.